or Reed.
Sorry.
No worries. Or if Reed has anything she wants to share, then go for it.
I don't have anything. Takes me longer to unmute myself than say anything.
Oh, no worries. Thanks, Reed. All right, then let's roll into the minutes from July 19th.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as written.
Thank you, Laura. I have a second.
Second.
Thanks, David. Any discussion on the motion? Simon, I just want to say nice job capturing especially that the conversation around the Glazer specific plan. That was nicely organized.
It's real benefit having meetings recorded, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's that benefit. Kim, did you have something?
Well, I guess two things. One, Simon, did you know you can generate a transcript? And then it makes taking minutes on Zoom super easy, assuming that Zoom like picks up the sound of everybody in the room. So I was gonna abstain from voting. This is my real question. I was gonna abstain from voting because I was not here, but is that gonna mess up? Like, do you need me to vote?
No, abstention counts as part of the
Okay,
quorum.
okay. Great.
At least I believe it does. Simon or anybody else know otherwise, but that's always been my understanding.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, Simon, you could probably, to Kim's point, you could probably get Chat GPT to just write out the minutes for you now.
I feel like it's getting worse, ChatGPT. Like I made it do an assignment in class to show students how bad it was. And then I made it do the same assignment to show my mom how bad it was. And it like couldn't do the assignment that it could previously do in class. So I don't think you wanted to do that because its quality is so poor.
I tend to find that like Zoom and my Xfinity remote and all those don't like my accent. They do not pick it up, which is a problem.
That's so funny.
All right, so we have a motion on the table. All in favor of approving the minutes from July 19th, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Laura and David. And Kim says she's just abstaining, so I think that covers it. Thank you, Simon.
Right.
All right, so that gets us to Pine Ridge Cabin. So Simon circulated a memo on Pine Ridge. Long and short of it is that it's no easy lift, and the town doesn't have the capacity to manage that project right now. Is that the gist of it, Simon?
Basically, yes. So, I mean, we talked about this back in the spring because the scouts wanted to use it. And we had the management plan action to like make a decision to refurb it, to remove it, or just to sort of adopt the status quo. And we also wanted to talk about various other things like the type of uses allowed at the property. So we did meet with RJ from VT Huts. It was really, really helpful, as well as the fire department. And we've gone and looked out at it with them, which has informed this sort of series of issues to address. So management making sure we've sort of got an equitable booking system, and all the other stuff we do for all our properties. Vermont Huts did recommend an occupancy limit for us based on their experience. We'd also need to make sure that staff are available to sort of go out and check on it between visits and the start and end of the season. Access is feasible through Tarcott Woods, but we would need to make sure that we have some ability to sort of refresh the trail, do some work there, and also sign it. The fire department, I think, are concerned about their ability to find their way to this location in the dark with their UTV, which would be problematic. Various interior work, so some limited sort of internal refurb to sort of clean paint and just make it safe. Also dealing with, establishing what the appropriate fuel source would be if we do want to make it available in the colder months, which I'm not sure we would. And then just dealing with the infestation of rodents. Probably remove the insulation and seal up the cabin, I think, there. The exterior is in pretty good shape. It's got a sort of sheet metal roof and it's on good foundations and the walls are in good shape. So there's no significant structural work to do. The RJ from Vermont Huts did recommend a few things, making sure if we're going to have overnight stays, a sanitation system, maybe a clean water source, and also dealing with some trees that are around there. I suppose where we ended up talking to the town manager's office is that sort of resolving these issues to bring it back into use are going to be quite time consuming on staff time. Just getting it up and running, but also ongoing management of it. We do manage property, so we manage, the old brick church and things like that for bookings, but they're right here. They're not a 45-minute trek across trails to get to them. So we're not able to resource taking that forward. Given the condition of the cabin, I think we probably can revisit this at a future date if it's something that we want to think about the town's wider approach to recreational facilities on town land. We've got some other buildings that we've never quite figured out what to do with, like the sheep barn of the Catamount, and those of you who live in Brennan Woods, the Brennan Barn. So there's plenty of sort of things that the town could spend their money on, should they choose to do so, and if they come up with a good use on it. And that's something we can talk about for the town plan objectives. I know Chris did venture that maybe the Outdoor Family Centre would be interested in running it for us. That would probably lessen slightly the burden on the ongoing management, but I think my experience of the license is we still have to do a huge amount of work to get us into a position where we were comfortable letting it out via them, and even if they even were interested in doing it. I know they've got like a huge amount of stuff they've got going on at the moment as well, so I don't think that's something we'd be looking to take forward at this stage either.
I can just add to that, just because I'm married to someone that's on their board of advisors, that they are having conversations about like really needing a building. So that, I mean, like, just for whatever that's worth, I feel like you could be like, we don't have the capacity to do anything about this right now, and put a bug in somebody's ear over there so that they at least are aware of that possibility in future years if the conditions change. Or I can put a bug in a board member's ear.
Yeah, I mean, it's something we were going to go and sort of do the same spiel that we did last 2 weeks ago with you to family centre board, because quite an important stakeholder now. I think see what they think about the town plan. They have made mention that they're looking at doing a permanent building. I was under the impression it was because they need to come up with a long-term plan to replace their accommodation in the Colours house, which won't be available forever.
Right, yeah, they need like some solution to address that and for like camps and stuff.
Yeah.
I thought we discussed that it wasn't exactly like close to the road or the parking structure, right? I mean, it's like at least a good 2 miles in.
Yeah,
from that
it's
location.
not. I think the closest road it's next to is Governor Chittenden, but it's pretty inaccessible from that side. So it is, you know, a hike across the southern part of Catamount and then through the woods to get to it. So we don't have road access, and we never will, given its location.
Yeah.
And then I think when we talked last time, the impression I got was that this had like a lot of value for conservation and wildlife, because it's relatively isolated parcel that doesn't adjoin any roads, and there's probably some limited like local residential trail use. But I don't think my impression is that no, people weren't on board with sort of opening it up to a wider recreational use. If we did look at the cabin, it would be go to the cabin and then come, you know, straight back out on the same trail.
So I guess the conclusion from this is that there's not much more to do at this time, other than perhaps follow up with Catamount.
Well, I'm not intending to follow up with them. I can let them know that, you know, when we talk to them, that you mentioned that this is a facility. Maybe in a few years' time we can revisit it.
Okay,
Okay.
any other questions or comments on that?
What do we tell the Boy Scouts? They're the ones who actually approached us asking for permission to do something there.
Well, I told Chris on Friday when I emailed around the agenda to let him know that what the outcome was, and copied in the note. So I've told him, and I can let him know that.
Yeah.
I mean, I sense you agree with me at this stage, so I'll let him know that we parked it for a few years at least.
Right. Yeah, I mean, their request was to, hey, can we show up with some supplies and materials and sort of refurbish it and kind of claim squatters' rights almost, is what the
Yeah,
impression
I mean,
was.
I get it. It would be a cool project for them to have,
Of course, yeah.
and it's, you know, it's quite an interesting thing, because you sort of, it does feel very remote, and then suddenly there's this cabin there. You know, it would be a cool thing to go and visit as a Boy Scout. But once we authorize use, there's a whole range of things that need to be established to do it properly. Just making sure that it's available to all is probably one key aspect, but also that it's safe, and also that the town understands and can manage it properly.
Absolutely.
All right, if there's nothing else on that, shall we roll into other business?
Yeah, we're a little ahead of schedule, so I thought maybe, because I emailed Adam Morse from Fellowship of the Wheel, who said he's back from vacation this week, so he might call in if he's got time at 7:35. So maybe we just talk about the Catamount Forestry Project.
Sure.
Which has been taken up a fair bit of time. So you might have seen over the summer, the Forest Committee voted, the voted to recommend the logger who's been chosen, the foes. And they went to the select board in June and got their contract approved. I think the reasoning behind the foes was a number they've got a lot of experience working on this type of environment. So they've worked at the traps and Katie Hill and some other high profile trails. So I think everyone was comfortable that they do a good job of protecting all those trails that we have up at Catamount. They also were the quickest. So they said, well, they actually said they'd finish in about 10 days, which I think everyone thought sounded too good to be true. But so we're budgeting 2 to 3 weeks for them to finish, which is great for sort of it being the most heavily used area of Catamount and getting it done quickly, and also sort of reducing the amount of time that those trails are inaccessible to people. We included all the stuff in the contract we talked about previously, so they've met Ethan's specifications on protecting the trails, but also making sure that they did, I think he calls it scarification of the ground as they move around, and they are going to be required to clear and repair any trails that they damage, as well as the drainage features. We've had a walk with the family centre and Ethan just to go over in advance exactly how the project's going to play out. So just walking the trails and figuring out with the foes how they're going to operate. Ethan spent a lot of time figuring this out. So he's already developed sort of plans to, get them off some of the better built trails for the maximum amount of time. So they're only on, I think, sand mounds for about 100 feet of trail, and then they branch off into the woods. The LaFoe's guy was really great on sort of telling us, we get to an area where we're crossing a single track at 90 degrees, and he was telling us how we deal with that to make sure he doesn't damage the trail. So we've got a lot of confidence in them. I think probably some of you might have been on Ethan's immense series of talks that he's done up at Catamount over the summer. So he's been doing a lot of promotion to brief people about what's coming up and to educate them on the forest management and why it's a good thing. So he has 2 more of those events if you are interested in going. One on August the 12th and one on August the 26th. One of those, I believe, is with Tony D'Amato from UVM Forestry, who I've heard is very engaging. So that might be a good one to attend if you're interested. So that's all good, and pending the rain, we should be starting on September the 1st to get going. So theoretically, this might all be done by late September, which would be a good result.
Pending the rain, is it too wet to go do that project right now, I'm assuming?
Well, I think it's drying out. So ultimately, Ethan will make the call on whether it's too wet. So he knows when the ground's firm enough to support all the equipment they're going to use. So, I mean, we were up there a week last Monday, which was just after all the heavy rains.
Mhm.
And, the ground seemed pretty dry to me, but Ethan sort of said, well, I'd want to give it like another few days to dry out if we were doing it now. But so ultimately it's his call. He's going to make the decision when the ground is dry enough. So we just need I think we need to dry August, and then we should be able to get going.
All right, sounds good. And Simon, do you know if Ethan's going to publish any more notices in like the Observer and stuff as we get closer to the start of the project?
So I think Ethan has been doing quite a lot. We've developed some FAQs, which I've now posted on the town webs page, and we were going to post those up at the hub, I think. well, not the FAQs, but a link to them, so that anyone who's interested can find out more information about why we're doing it, who's doing it, what's happening, etc. So that's why we're doing that. Yeah.
Have you received any, I know that we have like at least one person in town who's like a member of the like Standing Trees group that has like vocally opposed the project, but have you received like emails or opposition or like concern about it at all?
Not at all, other than that person, no. I've had no negative feedback.
Good.
Yeah, just the occasional post on Front Porch Forum. But other than that, I don't think doesn't seem to be any real opposition. You know, we've had a few queries about, from one person who wanted to know how we're paying for it. But they were sort of at pains to point out that they fully supported the project. So it does seem to be out there, and I think it was front page news on the Observer.
Yeah, it was a
2
good
weeks ago.
article too. Like at first I was like concerned about like the direction of it, and then it ended up being like very balanced and
Yeah.
well reported. So nice job to Jason Starr on that one. If you're listening to this recording afterwards, good job. Well, I'll be curious to see if you get anything like once it's started and once people like see.
I mean, I think we probably will. I also think that a lot of this is hopefully with the FAQs and things like that, we might be able to answer a lot of people's queries and questions about it. I know that Ethan's already like planning some walks in October to walk around the area and like explain to people why, what's happened, and explain to them all the good things that are going to result from the work that we've done. So he's going to keep on the messaging and engagement. He was telling me the other day he thinks this is the most highly publicized forest management project he's ever been aware of, let alone been involved with. He's done a huge amount of consultation. I think he's done over 20 events on this so far and counting. So there's been plenty of opportunities. It's been in the Observer on numerous occasions. I think WCAX have covered it. So it is out there, but there are going to be people who are not aware.
Or who just like don't want, like, I think it's possible there's going to be people who are aware and just don't accept the rationale. So
Right.
For whatever that's worth.
Right.
But yeah, I don't think anyone can say that the outreach wasn't good. The outreach has been more than, most forestry projects.
Yeah.
What did the final contract identify the most of the wood being put to use as? We talked about that.
They're gonna send it to there's a lumber mill in Essex that they're gonna send it to, and most of it's gonna be made into dimensional lumber. So they're gonna use it for that, which obviously means it's not, well, none is gonna be sent to the McNeil plant. It's gonna be, in terms of carbon, dimensional lumber is a pretty good store. And I don't think there's going to be much in the way of firewood or anything like that. Most of the low value wood is just going to be left on the ground. From what I understand from Ethan and LaFoe's, a lot of the wood up there, it would actually cost more to take it out and deliver it to the mill and process it than they would get back in revenue. Yeah.
That's actually, it's unfortunately the case for like a lot of forest restoration jobs. It's like the bane of my work that like the jack pine doesn't pay its way out of the forest, and I have to pay a logger hundreds of thousands of dollars to do fire restoration. I think this is an important talking point for all of us to know, though, like if people ask us questions, because like one of the objections has been this carbon issue, right? So for all of us to just be able to say, well, most of it's going to be dimensional lumber, and that actually does not release that carbon back into that. Like, I think that's just like a good quick thing for us to all have on the tips of our tongues.
Yeah, absolutely. I would actually, I would love to see if we could put a tag on it so that I could go buy some of that lumber and make a table out of it. That would be proof of that point.
Right.
Sometimes they do that,
Yeah.
like I bought wood sourced at like Shelburne Farms, for a specific, kind of a, kitsch value.
I would
Well,
buy the table.
Yeah, I'll ask Ethan. We,
Catamount table.
yeah.
I'm putting a dining room addition on my house right now. I have a
Wow.
giant pit on the side of my house, so I need a new table. So
There you
make it
go.
happen.
There you go. All right. Anything else on Catamount, Simon?
No. Unless there's any more questions.
Okay. Shall we move on to the quiet connector signage?
Yeah.
And so, as I mentioned, I'll need to log off in about 10 minutes, a little bit less. I would propose I'll leave it all up to you and David, but I propose we table the Glazer conversation until next time, given that we don't have very many Conservation Commission members, and in all likelihood, you'll just end up repeating the conversation next time.
I agree. I had the same thought with the low attendee list today, so
not discuss laser
Yeah.
for next time.
yeah.
Okay.
Does that work for the agenda? I know the public meeting is coming up in.
Well, it's not coming up until October.
Oh, okay. Great.
So we've got time, and I think next time the main thing we wanted to discuss was ERF outreach. So we can talk about that and Glazer.
Okay. Great.
Let me just email Ken. Okay, so so if you've been down to the conservation area recently, you'll see that Fellowship have been doing quite a lot of work down there. I don't know if anyone's been, but they've started the trail reroute. They've got all the lumber in, and they were up there on Monday, I think, doing some of the work closer to the road. So this is the bike connection between the parking lot and between the parking lot and Mud Pond Country Park. I know when we talked about this previously, one of the things that we were quite keen to make sure is that we got the signage right. So I just wanted to talk to you guys about this and see how we approach this. And get some feedback. A few things. We'll need to redo the sign at the front, which currently says no bikes, despite someone's attempt to scratch out bikes. And then we'll put up some signage along the way. So we did rebrand this the Quiet Connector. So it's just some starters for discussion about how we could do signage. And my experience of doing signage for this particular type of thing is that if you can get as many, people read signs differently. So if you can get as many opinions as you can, that's a helpful thing. So this is the entrance sign.
Yeah, This is in front of the parking lot.
Yeah. So this is what you see when you come in. I think the things that my notes are, the things we wanted to talk about was making sure people understand where cycling is and is not allowed. That pedestrians have priority, and that we highlight the difference between this and the country park, and that this is a quiet park. So this is a suggestion there. Then we've got our two places where there's a sort of decision point on the route. So this is the parking lot down here. And this is the crossing to Mother Pond Country Park. So where it branches off to the overlook to the pond, and then when you go off up to get around to on this circular walk. So the first one, so that's some examples from where I live locally about how they do it in the Arms Forest. There's probably a million ways of doing this. What I quite liked about this is it's fairly simple, and hopefully relatively easy to understand. And just highlights that you can't go straight on. If you're on your bike, you've got to go left. So we could do something similar. This is the junction coming from the parking lot off to the pond. So no bikes that way, all bikes this way. And this is approaching it from the other direction, all bikes straight on, no bikes towards the pond. And then this is also the decision point closer to the country park. You know, no bikes straight on, all bikes to the right, and then also coming from the country park. So that's a relatively simple way of doing it. That hopefully is clear to people. I don't know if people think that's clear. And then just some information just to update this sign to reiterate everything we already have, and then just to try and explain to people where bikes are and aren't allowed in a relatively succinct way.
On the little signs, I like the way that you have it better than the Colchester example. Like, I like that you have it like the idea of just one placard. Because I did at first, like when I was looking at the picture, although it was simple, it took me a second to be like, oh, two things go together and then the other two things go together. So like, I think everybody will make that connection, but this is cleaner the way that you have it. So I think like, that's my only, I like this approach, and we can keep it all on one sign so that people aren't having to like pair things. I think that's good.
Yeah.
And then on the big sign, my only comment is like, can we edit the punctuation so that like, if there are periods on the end of things, that they're consistent? And also, can we use the Oxford comma? Eric
Okay.
is laughing at me. I have no shame. I want the Oxford comma.
Okay, so yeah, these, I mean, I was going to do it. So I was going to do the periods here just to mimic what's here, where they're like halfway up.
Yeah, I just want like, if we have periods in some places, if we have them at the end of some clauses, can we have them at the end of all clauses? This is, this is nitpicky. This is like my editing neurosis. I'm just putting it out there for the world.
I don't think it's a period. I think it's just a separator, and it's higher up on the other sign, the dot.
So it's more like a bullet point almost than a period.
Right, yeah, I just couldn't figure out how to make the period go in the middle. If that makes sense, without spending like 20 minutes Googling how to do that. So when we do the signs, it's a lot easier to move it up. So yeah, we can move these signs up. I mean, you're right, Laura, it is like just a separator in the same way they've done it on the no fires, no glass. thing there, so we can, maybe we can also put one on the end. I was interested in like what people think about that as a.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too, Simon, and do will we or have any other information available in the parking lot about as to what the quiet connector is? Like, will people just intuitively know what the quiet connector is?
No, probably not.
And so if that's the case, then I guess I feel like we'd either need to provide more information explaining what part of the trail is the quiet connector,
Yeah.
or maybe just not use it.
My thinking is that it's really just bikes permitted only to go to the country park. It's just that
Right.
one stretch, right?
Yeah.
To allow them to connect from the parking lot to the park where they actually want to go mountain biking and all the trails are.
Yeah.
So could we make that more explicit, like bikes allowed only to access the country park?
Yeah, so permitted only to country park would be an option.
Yeah. That would reinforce the signage that you're trying to set up.
Yep.
Which is basically guiding them
Yeah.
only towards the country park and away from the other sections of the trail.
Yeah.
Yep.
But
I think Adam's here now, actually.
Yep, and I know that we liked the quiet connector idea, but like David is suggesting, I think if we refer to it as the country park access or something, that's just, it's easier to understand quickly.
I agree. Quiet, when you see that, you're thinking, what is that mean?
right.
And we have now we have at the bottom there, you have this is a quiet park managed by the town. That to me makes sense. Okay, no, yelling, screaming, whatever in this area. But quiet connector, just that's harder to understand at a quick glance.
What does quiet park mean? What does it mean? No screaming.
Yeah, I don't know exactly, but to me, it seems like it should be quiet. In that area,
Well,
don't make a lot of noise.
Didn't somebody register it with like some organization that I'm misremembering? Simon, what am I talking about?
No, you're remembering correctly. I don't remember the name of the person, but yes.
His name was Stephen. He records sounds at Mud Pond Conservation Area. He's actually pretty good at it. The quality's really good. Just the sounds of nature and things like that. And I think the idea behind quiet parks is that it's somewhere you can go and you don't hear the sound of the human world. So it's an organization that has this website where people can register it. I don't think they do a huge amount of checking on what is and isn't a quiet park. And I think everyone felt that, I agree. I think conservation area is very peaceful and nice. I like it a lot. That's probably my favorite park we have.
It's a cool idea.
Yeah.
One other suggestion I had on the actual trail signage that you proposed was, I think I was with Kim. I like that differentiation of bikes in this direction and all other walkers towards here. As a biker, I'm not always seeing some of those go, no go kind of signage. I think it would be helpful if 10 or 15 yards down from that connector, you have a really clear sign to sort of emphasize no bikes from here on out. And so that might be a good.
You mean like maybe just a little bit further on that way? I mean, I sort of feel this one towards the pond is self-policing.
I gotta log off. See you in a few weeks.
See you.
Yeah, we could do like I mean, we could do one of those, this type of sign down here for that, or just some sort of bought sign just a little further on saying no bikes this way.
Or just a small logo sign,
Right.
right? Just something that's like, re-emphasizes like,
Yeah.
if you don't see it, you're gonna, you're not gonna see it. But the point, I guess, that I would say is that if someone actively says like, screw it, I'm just gonna go in that direction anyways, there's another sign that they sort of have to actively see and like, oh, okay, all right, they mean it.
Yeah, we can put some more signs up. Well, a few more. I don't want to.
Yeah, no,
Right,
just
sign, yeah.
one. It doesn't have to be much. I think just to reemphasize it. That would be my suggestion.
Yeah.
I was just gonna add, I definitely support putting at least that like no bike access logo, another, 15, 20 feet down the trail, just in case it is missed. And, one other thought I had was we're actually working on this section this week. So some of those upgrades are continuing to go in this week, and we're looking at on the slide that you're looking at now, the picture on the left-hand side coming from the parking lot, it's titled there. That's a pretty sharp 90-degree turn. There is a thought to have where that small maple sapling is, to have sort of like a, like a fork in the road rather than like a 90-degree T intersection. And would like to run that by this group to see the openness to just sort of cut a little, like sort of merge to the right at that intersection. That one addition, I think, would make it a little more intuitive for riders, that as you're approaching it, it's not as hard a turn to the right, and it's more of like okay, this is my exit to the country park. It wasn't in the original work scope, but in looking at the sort of the actual intersection there, that could make things a little more, obvious for riders.
So would that be before the sign that we're looking at here or after the sign?
It would be just before that sign, which is, so you could keep those signs on that tree. That tree is like a really good, signifier to, put signage on, because it's a pretty good sized tree. Most others in that area are still a little bit smaller and younger. So that was sort of the thought, is just having, a little cut that peels off to the right there.
That makes total sense to me, because sometimes when people are riding, they're looking at the trail, not the signs, and the trail looks like it leads you right straight, but something off to the right would catch your eye.
Definitely.
Yeah, makes sense to me. And what did you say that sapling has to go then to do that?
I think we can keep that sapling. It would be slightly intrusive to the signage behind it, because that sapling's kind of right in line with it there, but there's plenty of room to go to the right of that maple sapling. And there's, I don't know what kind of tree it is, but there's like one even smaller sapling that's like about chin high. Almost looks like kind of like sumac, but I know it's not sumac. I can't think of what it is right now. But it doesn't really involve much cutting, which is why, when you stand there and look at it, it's like, oh, this would be a very intuitive way to peel off.
I mean, makes sense to me. I think previously when we talked about it, we were talking about no trees larger than 1.5 inch caliper or something to be removed. So we've been keeping with that. We're not really making a new trail, so it seems to make a lot of sense.
Yeah. I also had just, while you all were talking about the sign at the entrance there, I just popped a sort of a suggestion in the chat. it's a little bit wordy, but kind of on the same vein as you all were discussing about sort of bikes permitted to access to Country Park, where signed. That way you don't get into the specifics of the trail name, which I would agree would not be as intuitive for folks that would even know what the various trail segments are called.
Yeah. We'll go to the country park.
I think that makes sense, because that's where everyone wants to go anyways.
No, I like the conservation area. I think it's great. The country park's nice too, particularly in the winter. Adam, the Bill Flack is part of your organisation, is he?
No, he was on the board for a few years, but is not like officially, part of the fellowship board.
Okay.
We sort of, I do talk with him quite frequently just about, I know that he coordinates the grooming of the trails on the country park side. And I try to coordinate with him just on any maintenance stuff that's needed, especially before the first snowstorm, like last December. We were going to get like an 8-inch storm, and I coordinated with him and went out and cut a bunch of trees before that snowfall, just so that it would be easy for him to groom.
Yeah. So it just reminds me when he was out, I went out to see him, and he just asked whether we'd help him develop some signage for the kiosk, just to help educate people about what they're doing out there. So I think he runs into problems with people who don't necessarily understand the importance of grooming.
Yes. That is sort of globally across the fat bike grooming. It's getting, it's just that advocacy and info to folks, so when conditions can really put a damper on those for skiers and everyone else and bikers.
Yeah.
Is there anything more that needed for that discussion? Simon?
No, I think I just wanted to get some feedback, make sure we're heading down the right path. I think we're looking at, I guess, opening it sometime in the coming months. So it'd be good to get ahead of the game on signage.
Great.
I had one other question. So I can send a photograph of that intersection that shows that I took one yesterday, and I can send that to you, Simon, to share with the group here. And that's not something that needs immediate attention. It's realistically a 10-minute job for 2 people on the trail crew to just make that little merge to the right. The other question I had was about the incline up to the road, and if that was like so the gravel's a little bit narrow, and there'd need to be a little more fill. And Simon, last we spoke, I think you had mentioned, like, we collectively would need to connect with Public Works on possibly getting a deposit of fill there, or is that something that is totally up to us on that?
I guess I'll talk to Public Works now.
Okay. Yeah, I was noticing yesterday that on either side of that gravel, it's actually like significantly more steep and less of a bank than really the rest of the road is, for whatever reason there. It seems to be really cut in almost vertical, just on either side of that gravel.
All right. Okay. I think we're good.
So
Anything more here, or should we? I'm just pulling back up the agenda. I think if we're deferring Glazer, where's my agenda?
I think that's it. We
Yeah.
we had just, so next month, we're just going to talk about the ELF outreach in Glazer, I think. Sorry, in 2 weeks' time. Yeah.
I'm gonna head off. Thanks all.
Yeah, thanks, Alan.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I think that makes sense. You know, we don't, it's really just, the three of us.
Yeah.
And Glazer is obviously an important issue, so I know studying the edits will be helpful.
Yeah.
Do you want to just quickly tell us what edits for awareness even,
I mean,
the edits that you made?
I think there was just some clarification on hold on. There's some clarification on what the proposed public benefit was. We also looked at clarifying what the difference was in the open space offer, which I think was one of those things where I looked back and I think Laura asked the question, but I didn't understand her question. So like what we get on a regular discretionary permit versus what we get now. So that's in the little table that sets it out. And then there was some finessing of the proposed use recommendations for the 3 different areas of open space. And then there was also a second table which just sets out a potential priority matrix for what's the most important, what's the least important areas of those open spaces that you can have a look at and think about for the next meeting.
Okay. Thanks for that overview.
Okay,
I think we're done.
great.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a
Thank
good
you.
morning.